Debbie Pask here. I wanted to talk about the concept of love and the love stories that are going around spiritual fiction or fantasy fiction or movies or any of the things that are produced as entertainment and what we're devouring as a species on this planet Earth. Because a lot of the love stories that we're watching or reading about, and I've devoured a few of these over the last few years because it's so interesting to see what authors are writing, what movies are presenting. And I've seen a really interesting theme. I've seen a lot of books and movies talking about this idea of this addicted, unconditional, I'll do anything for you kind of love. And we saw it in movies such as the Twilight series. For anyone's watched the Edward and Bella saga around how, Edward falls in love with Bella and it's all he can think about and he'll do anything for Bella. But you see it in book lines, in some of the fantasy series. They're happening a lot. And I want to talk to that because it's really deeply embedded into our human ego and psyche, not our spirit, but our ego and psyche to have this all-consuming love. And I've figured out what I think it is about. It's about being seen. It's about being unconditionally loved, seen and accepted. And and I heard this put beautifully in a video, out of our mundane, ordinary lives, there's this rush of love and acceptance and desire that we feel like another can give us. And whilst it's a beautiful idea, it's actually quite flawed. And I want to talk about that because it's setting people up for what I would consider a falsity around how we give and receive love and how we do love in this lifetime. Because those movies and those books aren't real around how human love actually works. If you think about it, I have conditions on love. I am conditional. I don't want my partner to hurt me, to abuse me, to be morally grey, to have really clashing values to me. So I do have conditions around love relationships on a human level, on a day-to-day interactive human everyday life, because we are here, we're in a human avatar on this planet. We're not just floating up in the ether. Yes, there's the law of oneness, which we'll talk about in a minute, which is spiritual relationships. It's a very different story. But we are in a human body and a physical avatar. So when we have people that come into our life, there are conditions. So, I've got this concept of I only invite you to the table if, you're a good stand-up person for me or that you honor me, which means that you love and support and respect me, but we have differences, but you bring something really beautiful and magical to the table that I really love about you, and you don't hurt or harm me in a way that's not okay, and that's physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually. So there's that level, and that human love is conditional. It is based on shared values and respect and being in good relationship together. That is a real human relationship. Now, let's talk about spiritual relationships because they're very different. And this is where we come into true peace and true awareness. So a spiritual relationship should start off with the I am. And the I am presence says, I am that, meaning I am part of all of this universe. I am one with everything. I am not separated. There's an illusion of separation, when we come down into this human vehicle. And yes, there is separation. We are individuated into a body and a different fractal. But if you go up a layer into the spiritual levels, we are one. So everyone is a reflection or a part of the same diamond. So in many ways, the law of oneness does give us what we're seeking, that I'm seen, I'm heard, I belong, I show up, I am connected to everything. I am fully embraced and desired and loved because I am part of everything. So if I actually truly understand that I am both the drop and the ocean, when I look at the ocean, I am everything. I don't need to seek that outside of myself because I already am that. I already have that. And that's quite a powerful place to get to. And that takes, work on your spiritual self, and it takes a level of development that you realize that you are that. And if you understand the 7 layers of the human energy field, you realize that as you surpass mind into soul, spirit, and then higher self, you achieve that feeling and that state of the law of oneness. Now, I can't operate everyday life traveling around in the law of oneness and just feel that state all the time. I'm aware that I am individuated, but if I want to have that fully seen, fully belong, fully heard, fully loved, fully desired, that is the place I find that in that spiritual depth of relationship to myself, fractal source, universe. And when I meet other humans in that space, I've realized that spiritual relationships that are unconditional with the other means I love them for shadow and light. It means that I can see how someone's evolving me and the gifts they bring to the table and the reflections. So I'm seeking not an addicted, loving, obsessive state. I'm seeking these shades of light and dark, which actually progress and change and evolve me along the way. And so if you start to understand that all of the relationships that you're in have both sides, the human conditional side, which you should have boundaries, that's clever. And then that spiritual relationship where you're learning light and dark, you truly realize that the only person that truly sees you is yourself as part of all of oneness, which means others as well, but not in the way that you think. So I want to challenge these falsities around books and movies around that you can find this human love relationship, and I'm talking about intimate love relationship or intimate close friends. They can be very intimate too. I want to challenge this idea that unless it's this moving, addictive, obsessive, all loving, all powerful, unconditional relationship, it's not real, because that's just not the way it is. So think of the two states. The human relationships have conditions, otherwise your boundaries are crossed and they're hurtful. Your spiritual relationships with people have both. They have light and dark, and they're evolutionary processes. And ultimately, when you truly connect into the deepest spiritual relationship and the deepest romance that you'll ever have, which is with yourself as source energy, that's where you find that fully seen, fully heard, fully belong, fully desired, because that's that state. So yeah, I just wanted to share that, because if people get trapped into this, I have to find that in another, in a human, then it's a never ending unfulfilled promise, which is really, really fatiguing and exhausting for the human spirit. Thanks for listening.